Well, here I'm 2 months in as a new president of Senate Conservatives Fund, and I talked about our mission of electing conservatives to the Senate, the growth of the Senate Conservatives Fund, which was begun by Senator Jim DeMint 6 years ago, and frankly the success it's had with people like Senators Paul, Lee, Cruz, Toomey, so forth, and dealing with the NRSC, which is certainly a subject of interest in this room, and then took some questions which were all over the map. A lot of constitutional questions, which probably isn't surprising for me.
Now, what about the way the NRSC and some of their proxy have been treating SCF on Twitter specifically? I've seen some horrible comments.
Yeah, it's it's really juvenile, and that's coming from a guy who, has a sense of humor and everything else. It's we must be doing something right. It's like having the Washington Post attack you. They don't attack you if you aren't effective. So the average score, if you will, for incumbents who've been challenged keeps coming down. That happened in 10, 12, and again in 14. Different races are won or lost. We beat incumbent Ralph Hall over in the House with our House Conservatives project. John Ratcliffe pulled that off, and of course we all saw Dave Bratt beat Eric Cantor in my home state, which was really a local movement conservative effort. So the wins happen, losses happen, the fight goes on. We're about the fundamental principles, and the candidates involved really just are a reflection of those principles. The NRSC is just about status quo and power, and they've said it. I mean, Jerry Moran said, "Hey, we're not the Republican Party. We don't care about that," which is another way of saying we don't care about you. We don't care about the history of this country. We don't care about why the Republican Party exists. We just want chairmanships.
Now, do you feel like the NRSC is starting to feel the pressure? I mean, I look at a lot of these races, and what I see is they're winning, but re-electing an incumbent shouldn't be as difficult as it is.
Right.
And when they're barely breaking 50%,
or not breaking 50%, Pat Roberts.
Are they feeling the pressure, and maybe their responses are them acting
they clearly are. And I mean, there are two ways that Senate Conservatives Fund achieves its mission: electing more conservatives to the Senate and encouraging, positively or negatively, however you'd like to consider it, the Republicans who are already there to vote more conservatively, to act more conservatively, and that's clearly being achieved. To use a rather stark example this year, in the week after Dave Bratt beat Eric Cantor, the whip count on the amnesty bill in the House went from about 140-something to 70-something in a week. Half of them dropped off. And of course, we saw how that played out to the end of July. We're having an impact. Ex-Im Bank is on life support. They'll probably try to push it into the lame duck where they can revive it. And Kevin McCarthy can say, "Oh, gee, we just have to do this." And he can not oppose it anymore like he does now. And those kinds of things are having policy impacts that matter and really are changing the course issue by issue in Washington. We're at SenateConservatives.com. Okay. We have a relatively small slate of candidates. There aren't a ton of Senate races. We supported Ben Sass. We're supporting Joni Ernst. We're supporting Rob Maness in Louisiana, which is still sort of in primary stage, or whatever they call it in Louisiana, the jungle primary. And we have a number of House candidates. We're supporting Alex Mooney in West Virginia. I mentioned John Ratcliffe, who really, the big part of his race was beating the incumbent Ralph Hall there, and others. And we'll add a couple more as the month or next couple of months goes on. So SenateConservatives.com is how people can join us. We've been growing like crazy over the last 6 years, again started by Senator Jim DeMint, and the mission is the same: a more conservative Senate and a more conservative Washington with more conservative leadership, which is what this country needs. I mean, if we're going to attack the biggest problems that threaten us long term, which are all of our own making, we need more conservatives there who are committed to pursuing these policies with backbone and with brains.